Victoria's Secret is America's leading retailer of women's undergarments, and for a time it was the most iconic lingerie brand in the world. Then, in the midst of the glitz and glamour, Victoria's Secret lost its spark and floundered its image. Falling from icon to infamy, this is the story of how the world's most famous lingerie company went under. For years, when people thought of lingerie, they thought of Victoria's Secret. From the attention-grabbing storefronts to the glitz and glamour of the iconic Victoria's Secret fashion show, the brand dominated the market without contest. Then, it all came crashing down. But how did Victoria's Secret get so successful in the first place? It all started with one man and a trip to the department store. Roy Raymond was born on the 15th of April 1947 in Connecticut. He had always had a mind for business, even at a young age, and would go on to complete his master's degree in business administration at Stanford University. With that business-driven focus, it's not surprising that after an awkward experience at the department store, Roy saw a gap in the market. He had intended to purchase some lingerie for his wife, Gay, but the experience proved so uncomfortable for him that he decided to revolutionize the lingerie industry so that no man would feel like he did that day ever again. For the next 8 years, Roy would study the lingerie market and plan his own entry into the industry, intending on creating a space where men could feel comfortable shopping for and purchasing lingerie for their significant others. At the time, the women's undergarments industry wasn't all that fabulous, dominated by pragmatic underwear sold in value packs. The lingerie market was incredibly niche, chock full of terry cloth and ugly florals, by Roy's own words. Determined to do better, Roy borrowed a grand total of $80,000 from the bank and his family, and in 1977 established the first ever Victoria's Secret store in the Stanford Shopping Center in Palo Alto, California. The secret referred to the undergarments themselves, and the store was named after Queen Victoria and the posh, refined status of the Victorian era that Roy wanted to associate with his business. The store was an immediate success, grossing a cool $500,000 in its first year of operations. Shortly after, Roy would launch the Victoria's Secret catalog, an iconic part of the brand that would stick around for years to come. By 1982, the company had 6 locations and a mail-order service that allowed customers to have products delivered directly to their homes. By the end of that same year, Victoria's Secret made $6 million in sales, 55% of which came from catalog sales. Even though they were raking in millions of dollars in sales, a deeper look at Victoria's Secret finances at the time would reveal that the brand was close to bankruptcy. Les Wexner, founder of L Brands and rising figure in retail at the time, would buy the company from Roy for just $1 million. While $1 million is nothing to scoff at usually, compared to what the brand would grow to, $1 million was a drop in the bucket. Roy would go on to deeply regret this decision to sell for that price. After a host of other failed businesses following Victoria's Secret, Roy Raymond ended his life by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. Under the guidance of Les Wexner, Victoria's Secret would flourish. One of his first moves was to completely change the angle of the brand. Instead of focusing on men and their shopping experience, Les wanted to market women's lingerie to women. Les had done his research prior to the switch, and his intentions with the brand was to essentially recreate the feel of the luxury lingerie brands of Europe at an affordable price for the American woman. Unsurprisingly, the concept was a massive success. What followed? A boom in business for Victoria's Secret, as the brand rapidly built itself up to the height of its success. The 90s saw the opening and operation of 350 stores across the country, and the company hitting $1 billion in sales. By the early 1990s, Victoria's Secret was officially the largest retailer of lingerie in the United States. During this period, Victoria's Secret launched products that would become some of the most successful and most recognizable items sold by the company, such as Body by Victoria and the Miracle Bra, a heavily padded bra that worked miracles on chests of any size. These products would go on to surpass doubling the sales of any previous bra that the brand had available, taking the entire country by storm. Of course, perhaps the most memorable addition in the 1990s Victoria's Secret brand would be the fashion show. Anyone familiar with Victoria's Secret is likely familiar with the fashion show, an annual event that began in 1995 at the Plaza Hotel in New York. The Victoria's Secret fashion show is as iconic as a brand has ever been. The show was run by the chief marketing officer of L Brands, Ed Razek, who was entrenched in the production of the event. Razek and his team handpicked each of the models who would walk the show, a job that would become increasingly sought after throughout the years the show ran. The fashion show was a hit, and the sheer scale of the event would continue to grow each year, drawing more of an audience each time the lingerie company took to the runway. When in 1999 the show made its online airing debut, it drew upwards of 1.5 million viewers, which promptly crashed the website. But if the fashion show was the centerpiece of Victoria's Secret brand, the angels were the crowning jewel. Towards the end of the 90s, the concept of the angel was born as a result of the Angel's underwear collection. The angels become symbols of the ideal Victoria's Secret woman and flaunted flawless bodies and the latest lingerie. Many of Razek's handpicked models would go on to become massive names in the modeling industry. Models like Heidi Klum, Tyra Banks, and Gisele Bündchen, who would be elevated to supermodel status, whose careers were launched by walking the Victoria's Secret fashion show. The overall glamour and status of the show would continue to increase throughout this time, with higher budgets and bigger sets, each more luxe and lavish than the last. However, as the world entered the mid-2010s, the spectacle of the runway show was not enough to fill the cracks emerging in the company at large. Between the years of 2015 and 2018, sales for Victoria's Secret weren't measuring up to its previous years. As the primary styles offered by the brand fell out of fashion and newer, more diverse competitors appeared, Victoria's Secret began to lose market share. Consumers were no longer looking for the idealized woman to emulate. Instead, they wanted their purchases to represent who they were. Victoria's Secret's perfect picture line of supermodels no longer reflected what the every woman wanted. As a result, the company lost 9% of its market share by 2018 and would continue to lose more as the years went by. In 2018, viewership for the once-beloved runway show was down, and the event as a whole was criticized for its outdated representation of female beauty. Adding fuel to the fire was Ed Razek, who drew the internet's ire by stating that plus-size and transgender models had no place in the fantasy that was the Victoria's Secret fashion show. Razek was eventually said to be re-signing after a massive public outcry against him. In 2019, a year after the horrible press that Razek and the runway show had generated, John Mias stepped in as CEO of the lingerie brand in hopes of revitalizing the company. John took the criticisms received to heart and set to work rebranding. In November of that year, the fashion show would be canceled for the first time since its creation in the 90s. John did his best to rework the brand image, appointing new female board members to balance out the gender imbalance in the board of directors and welcoming body-inclusive and trans models to the company. While the brand's attempts to revive itself were deemed as contrived and shallow by some members of the public, customers of Victoria's Secret welcomed the new changes, hoping that it meant a new, better era for the brand. Unfortunately, all of this took place on the cusp of a global pandemic. COVID-19 shut down up to 250 Victoria's Secret stores in North America. While the second half of 2020 proved optimistic in terms of online sales, the brand had become a shadow of what it once was. Victoria's Secret built up an empire on the wings of angels, but what goes up must eventually come down. Whether or not the lingerie brand will ever return to its former glory remains to be seen. Victoria's Secret will need to win back the hearts of the public and beat out a host of new competitors, if it ever hopes to stand as tall as it once had.